Hey guys, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are making cauliflower rice. Cauli rice is an excellent substitute for regular rice when you're on a low carb and a ketogenic diet. It can be served plain as a spicy biryani or like we're having it today, garlic egg fried cauli rice. We're going to begin by prepping our cauliflower. This is done by just chopping it into florets, trimming off any of the green leaves and excess stalks, and just cutting them down into more manageable pieces. Once all the excess stems, leaves and stalks have been trimmed, it's a good time to weigh the cauliflower and then just take it over to the sink and rinse it out. Just want to make sure that there aren't any creepy crawlies hiding inside the cauliflower or there isn't any dirt stuck to the florets. If there are some problem areas, you can just trim them off on the board. We're quickly going to clean up our workspace and then move on to peeling and dicing our onions. What we want to go for here is a small to medium dice. The more consistent you are with the dice, the more evenly the onions will cook. Next, we're going to move on to peeling our garlic. You just press it down on the board with the heel of your palm, and that'll separate all that loose papery peel. I find the easiest way to peel individual cloves of garlic is to chop off either end and then to smash them with my blade lightly. This should loosen the skin just enough for you to be able to peel them by hand. Once you've got all your garlic cloves peeled, you can proceed to chop them finely. And once again, the more consistent the chop, the more evenly they'll cook. Now it's time to grate the cauliflower. You can totally do this by hand using a hand grater, but I find it's much easier and faster to use the grating attachment in a food processor. The rice is going to be cooked in a wide non-stick pan. It's important to use a wide pan here because we're trying to encourage as much moisture loss as possible. Cauliflower contains a lot of water and it takes a long time for it to become dry. Over a medium flame, heat up 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then add the onions to saute. Make sure the flame's not too high because we want to do this gently. We'll also sprinkle a little bit of salt to help the onions along. I also like to add white vinegar during the saute process. I find that this gives the onions a nice, fresh and tangy flavor. After giving them a good shake and stir, I'm just going to cover them and let them cook until they become translucent. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare my spices. First, we're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. You can add more or less depending on how much heat you want. Next, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano. Don't forget to keep checking on your onions. You want to make sure they're not sticking to the pan. Once you notice that the onions are starting to brown around the edges and they've become fairly translucent, it's time to add the shredded cauliflower. We're just going to pour all of it in and mix it around so that the onions and the cauliflower are well incorporated. We're also going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil and just give it a mix. Just cover it and let it cook for 4 to 5 minutes. This will allow the cauliflower to come up to temperature, create some steam, and that's when we can add our masala mix. Cauliflower holds a lot of moisture and it takes quite a long time to cook through. So the best way to do it is to steam it over a medium heat in a covered pan for a long period of time, stirring occasionally to make sure it's not catching at the bottom. While the cauliflower is cooking, I'm going to measure out the rest of my ingredients, starting with 100 ml of chicken stock, and we're just going to add this straight to the pan. This is a great and flavorful way to keep your cauliflower hydrated. This is also a good time to add your chopped garlic, and we're going to pour a little bit of olive oil on top of the garlic as well. Give it a little bit of a mix and just cover it and let it cook. Just making sure that the heat is not too low. We want it at a nice medium. While the cauliflower and the garlic is cooking down, I'm going to go and fetch some fresh parsley and basil from the garden. Now that the garlic has come up to temperature and most of the chicken stock cubes have melted, I'm just going to give them a nice stir, get everything well mixed, let all the flavors spread throughout the pan evenly. And yeah, just gonna cover it and cook it again. This is one of those recipes where you can't really leave the kitchen, but you do have a lot of opportunity in between the times you have to stir the pot to prepare your other ingredients. Like the fresh herbs we just cut. So I'm going to wash and dry the herbs, remove the stems from the parsley, and then give it a nice chop. And the basil gets the same treatment. Once you have all the herbs chopped, you can set them aside for later. We're going to use these to garnish our dish. It's important that you use a sharp knife so that you don't bruise the herbs while you're chopping them. We don't want them to release any of their green juices onto the board because that's all flavor that's being wasted. By now the cauliflower should have started to brown, and as you can see, it's getting stuck to the pan. So it's very important at this point to be consistent with your stirring and to be vigilant, because if the cauliflower remains stuck to the pan, it will burn, and that's a flavor we don't really want. Now that the Cauli rice has lost a lot of its moisture, it's a good time to taste and check for seasoning, and then add salt and pepper accordingly. If you have some stubborn areas that are still stuck to the pan, they're quite easy to dislodge. You just use a few drops of water to soak them and they'll come right out. It's literally only a few drops at a time. These bits that are being dislodged are very flavorful. We're making an Asian style cauliflower rice, so I'm going to add some ingredients that further enhance the Asianness of the dish. Ingredients like soy sauce and fish sauce. Let me know in the comments if you guys also use your bottle caps to measure out your liquids. You can see that the cauliflower is now really starting to take on some color, and that is in part because of the soy sauce, but it's also because it's starting to brown a lot faster, having lost most of its moisture. This is my favorite time of making Cauli rice because you've been at it for about 20 minutes, and finally it feels like you're getting close. I have to admit, adding the scallion and the zucchini was an afterthought, otherwise I would have prepped it earlier, but no harm, no foul. Chop off the stem and the root for the scallion and then slice as much of it as you need. If your board was slipping around like mine was, just place a damp sponge or paper towel underneath it to prevent it from sliding. I'm going to add the business end of the scallion into the Cauli rice so it can cook down a little bit, because scallions have a pretty strong flavor. And I'm going to leave the stem as a garnish for later. I'm only using half a zucchini. What I'm going to do is cut it down into even pieces and then remove all the seeds. We're going to pan fry the zucchini. So to save time, I'm going to heat up some olive oil in a non-stick pan. And while I'm here, I might as well stir the Cauli rice one more time. Here I'm just slicing out the cores, removing the seeds from the zucchini. If you skip this step, the zucchini will release a lot of water in the pan and then will essentially steam instead of frying. So to avoid this, it's important to remove the cores. cauli rice is looking really good. It's almost done. I'm just going to check it for flavor and seasoning. I'm going to add a splash of vinegar. If you have rice wine vinegar, that's great to use in sort of these Asian-inspired dishes, but I didn't, so I'm just using white distilled vinegar. Once the oil comes to temperature, just lay the zucchini in the pan and let it get some color. I'm going to sprinkle the cauliflower rice with a few chili flakes just for some spice. And I'm going to make a little bit of an opening in the pan and toast some sesame seeds. The zucchini is cooking nicely. It's getting some good color. I'm just going to give them a flip. Add some salt and pepper. A little bit of vinegar. And make sure those sesame seeds don't burn. I'm going to add some cayenne pepper to the zucchini for a little bit of a heat kick. And I'm going to mix in the sesame seeds with the cauli rice. Once the zucchini is cooked through, I'm going to bring it over to the chopping board and cut it down into evenly sized pieces. I'm going to check for seasoning and need some salt. Give it a good mix just on the board itself, and into the cauli rice they go, along with the chopped green onion stems. Adding the scallions before we finish will allow them to soften but not cook through. We're going to turn up the heat now and attempt to do a little bit of a quick stir fry with the cauli rice. I'm just going to press down the cauli rice to the pan and let it sit for a minute or two. I'm trying to give it some extra color and then quickly give it a stir. The amount of moisture loss that the cauliflower has really becomes evident when you look at the before and after. This is why it takes so long to cook cauliflower rice and why you should use a wide frying pan. Once the cauli rice is cooked through, you can pour it out into a serving bowl and then realize in order to make an omelette, you need to break some eggs. Just beat a couple of eggs with some oregano, some cayenne pepper, and some garlic powder. Fry the eggs in some preheated olive oil in a wide non-stick frying pan. Swirl the eggs around for maximum surface area and to thin out the omelette as much as possible, then cover for a couple of minutes to cook through. Once the eggs are done, just fold and transfer them to a chopping board. Cut into small squares and mix as needed into the cauliflower rice. And then at the end, finally, we can garnish with our freshly chopped herbs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful and that you enjoyed this recipe. I look forward to reading your comments and hearing your feedback. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And as always, stay safe, stay happy, and eat well.